I didn't realize I was trapped at first. I genuinely thought I was just being loyal. I thought I was being patient. I thought this was what love was supposed to feel like when things get complicated and serious. The fear came later, quietly, slowly enough that I didn't question it right away. When people talk about feeling trapped in a relationship, they usually imagine control, anger, or hatred. That wasn't my experience. I didn't feel trapped because I stopped loving her. I felt trapped because loving her slowly started to feel dangerous. Not uncomfortable, not difficult. Dangerous in a way that made me constantly calculate my words, my reactions, and my choices. When we first met, things were calm in a way that felt rare. Nothing felt rushed or dramatic. We talked easily. She asked real questions about me, about how I handle conflict, what I value, what makes me feel respected. That mattered to me because I've always believed that the small things are what determine whether a relationship is safe or not. Early on, we talked about boundaries, not rules or ultimatums, just basic principles. I told her that I don't believe in hurting the person you're with. I don't hit women, and I don't accept being hit either. Not because I think I'm morally superior, but because once violence enters a relationship, something fundamental breaks. At the time, that conversation felt mature. She listened. She didn't argue. There was no warning sign that made me feel uneasy. If anything, it made me feel more secure. Looking back, that's part of what makes everything harder to understand. The first signs that something was wrong didn't come as explosions. They came as tension that lingered too long, arguments that didn't really end, apologies that didn't bring relief. There was always something unresolved, something hanging in the air, even when we said we were fine. I kept telling myself this was normal. Every couple argues. Every relationship has rough patches. I didn't want to be the person who gives up too quickly or expects perfection. I believed love meant working through things, even when it was uncomfortable. But eventually, conflict stopped feeling like two people trying to understand each other. It started feeling like something I had to survive. Conversations became unpredictable. Emotions escalated faster than I expected. And instead of focusing on what we were actually arguing about, I started focusing on how to keep things from getting worse. I measured my words. I replayed sentences in my head before saying them. I avoided topics that I knew could lead to another blow-up. I wasn't being dishonest because I wanted to lie. I was being careful because I was afraid of what honesty might trigger. Then she became pregnant, and everything intensified. Suddenly, the relationship wasn't just about us anymore. It was about responsibility, about the future, about what kind of man I was supposed to be now. There was an unspoken expectation that I needed to hold everything together no matter how overwhelmed I felt. Walking away stopped feeling like an option, even in theory. I told myself this was what stepping up looked like. That pressure was normal. That fear was just part of becoming responsible. I convinced myself that if I stayed calm enough, stable enough, everything would eventually settle. Instead, things became more volatile. Arguments escalated quickly, sometimes over small things. And when emotions peaked, the situation stopped being about the problem and became about preventing something worse from happening. Fear entered the relationship in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. I wasn't just worried about saying the wrong thing. I was worried about what my words might cause. I found myself backing down from conversations I needed to have because I was afraid of the outcome. I was constantly scanning for signs of tension, adjusting my tone, my timing, even my body language to keep things from spiraling. Living like that changes you. It keeps your nervous system on edge all the time. After a while, you stop feeling like a partner and start feeling like a caretaker of crises. There were moments when I tried to talk honestly about how overwhelmed I was. I tried to explain that the constant conflict was wearing me down, that I didn't feel comfortable with how intense things had become. But those conversations never stayed focused on how we could improve together. They always shifted. Instead of talking about the relationship, the focus became what would happen if I left, how unbearable it would be, how impossible it would be for her to cope. And once that fear entered the conversation, logic disappeared. When someone you love frames your departure as something catastrophic, you stop thinking in terms of what's healthy. You start thinking in terms of damage control. You stay not because you believe it's right, but because leaving feels too dangerous to consider. That's when I realized something I didn't want to admit to myself. I wasn't staying because the relationship felt safe or loving. I was staying because I was afraid of what might happen if I wasn't there. Afraid of carrying guilt for the rest of my life. Afraid of being responsible for something irreversible. I tried to compensate in every way I knew how. I became more attentive. I tried to anticipate her needs before she expressed them. I planned trips, bought gifts, brought flowers, reassured her constantly. I told myself that if I could just give enough, love enough, things would stabilize. But reassurance didn't fix it. The tension never fully went away. The arguments kept happening, and the sense that I was walking on unstable ground only grew stronger. I noticed that I wasn't expressing myself fully anymore. I avoided certain topics entirely. I held back opinions. I softened reactions even when I felt hurt or angry. I wasn't doing it to manipulate anything. I was doing it to survive the relationship. That's when it became clear that something fundamental had changed. Love used to feel like connection. Now it felt like obligation. Like responsibility mixed with fear. And that combination traps you between compassion and self-preservation. I questioned myself constantly. Was I being selfish for wanting peace? Was I weak for feeling overwhelmed? Was this just what real commitment looks like when things get hard? Those questions looped in my head endlessly, especially at night. And the more I tried to find clarity, the more confused I became. Because no matter how exhausted I felt, I still cared about her. And caring made everything harder. We're supposed to be getting married soon. From the outside, it probably looks like my life is moving forward. Plans are being made. A future is being talked about. Expectations are forming. But inside, I feel frozen. I wake up most days with a constant pressure in my chest. Even on calm days, the fear is still there, waiting quietly. I think a lot about what it means to promise your life to someone. About what commitment is supposed to feel like. I've always believed commitment means staying when things are hard, showing up instead of running away. But I'm starting to understand that staying at all costs isn't the same as staying out of love. There's a difference between choosing someone and feeling trapped by what might happen if you don't. And that difference matters more than I ever realized. Sometimes I imagine different futures. In one, I stay, keep trying, keep absorbing the tension, telling myself it's temporary. In another, I leave, and that thought terrifies me just as much, if not more. Not because I don't care, but because I care too much. Because I don't know how to live with the idea that my choice could cause serious harm. So I stay suspended between those two realities, unable to fully step into either one. I see how much I've changed, how cautious I've become, how carefully I choose my words, how rarely I express frustration anymore. I've learned to swallow emotions quickly, to smooth things over, to prioritize calm at any cost. The part that scares me most is how normal that has started to feel. I used to think love made you feel more like yourself, more open, more grounded. Lately, it feels like I'm shrinking to fit into a situation that keeps asking more of me than I know how to give. I don't feel safe being fully honest. And that's not something I ever thought I'd say about someone I love. I don't know what decision I'll make. I don't have a clean ending or a clear answer. I just know that love shouldn't feel like something you survive day by day. It shouldn't require you to disappear slowly in order to keep someone else afloat. Acknowledging that doesn't make me cruel or heartless. It just means I'm finally being honest with myself. This isn't a confession with a lesson. There's no advice here. There's no resolution. There's just the truth of where I am right now, standing on the edge of a future I'm supposed to want, while quietly mourning the version of myself that felt safe, grounded, and free. And I needed to say that out loud. And I keep wondering, when love starts to feel like fear, how do you know whether you're staying out of commitment or staying because you're afraid to leave?